I will learn to strike, I will learn to fly. I will learn to kill, I don't learn to die.
Blasphemous. Yes, I did a few minutes in it impression before, but that was the pre-release demo that I did, and now I've been able to put a lot more time into it. I started a brand new playthrough recently, and wow, what an amazing game, even more so than I already praised it during the initial time I spent with it. Now, where to start with this? So back in the original video, I made a few comparisons to Dark Souls and whatnot, and although there's some obvious I don't know, I'm at a loss for words here, excuse me on that, but aside a few things that are pretty reminiscent of Dark Souls, it's a very unique game in its own right. The very Catholic guilt aesthetic, the whole, fantasy take on everything, very dark, grim looking world. A lot of the villains are pretty fucked up looking monsters that, again, play homage to the Catholic idea of purgatory, basically, or hell. Really gothic look to the game, which is really, really awesome. A lot of it's pretty nonsensical in terms of the lore. It's a bunch of, very hoity-toity bullshit in terms of the lore being very highfalutin, I guess, in a way. Not like it's going out of its own realm of being this, like, trying to be high art thing, but because they do go into a lot of kind of ancient lore of this fictional world, it's very easy to get lost, I guess. I mean, the game is very enjoyable if you kind of just bypass the lore regardless. Not to take away from it, it's just thankfully, like, it's there, but it's optional. Getting off of all that, the combat system is just the right speed that I like, where it's, a lot of timing, learning patterns of the enemies and especially the bosses, but not necessarily too sluggish where I can't have too much fun, but then not too fast where I have a hard time keeping track. For example, it's no Dead Cells in terms of speed, but I like it that way, although I did enjoy Dead Cells very much. The length of the game, it seems to be fairly, if you've never played it before, like, you can probably beat it in about 4 or 5 hours if you're really good at this type of game. But me, I see myself getting maybe 8 or 9 out of it by the end of things. I'm at the 4-hour mark right now, and I'm about 4 bosses in. The game has the right amount of difficulty and frustration that I do enjoy without totally getting full of despair or losing hope entirely. I can die, and even though, for example, on the most recent boss I fought, I had a lot of moments where I would get it down to the last sliver of health and still end up, dropping the ball or getting too nervous and getting killed. But it still makes me come back. Like, it's not the type of thing where it's so frustrating that I never revisit the game again, which happens to me sometimes. There's also sometimes where the game just gets, it gets me to my peak, which is not too high when it comes to difficulty of games, and I just can't really handle it. For example, with the Messenger, I'm on the final boss and I can't beat it, unfortunately. I'm the Messenger, excuse me. The Katana Zero. And I'm stuck on the last section and I can't beat it, unfortunately. The Messenger, the reason that came to mind is I am stuck on a part, but I do want to come back to that. That's another game. I think that The Messenger and Blasphemous are two games that are pretty difficult for me, but reasonable enough in difficulty that I still am able to come back and have a lot of fun with it, and it still makes me come back instead of pushing me away, which is really hard for a lot of games to do because I'm a very easily frustrated person. The soundtrack is awesome. The aesthetics and the soundtrack have a very Spanish influence to it, which is really, really cool. The team just did such a great job. It's aesthetically beautiful. That's one of the high praises you'll hear about this game is the pixel perfect everything. Like, everything is absolutely gorgeous in the game. The character has everything in the game, actually, not just the main character, has a very weird design. Like, all the monsters are real fucked up looking, and it's great. I really just advise everybody pick this up. This is definitely one of the best games to come out last year, and I would love to see more come from this studio, play more from them. Who is the studio? I'm actually going to look that up. Usually, I already have everything pre-planned, but I actually did all this shit off the top of my head, which I imagine you probably figured out because it was definitely not as, I wouldn't even call the original ones very smooth, but it was by a Spanish studio called The Game Kitchen, and it's published by Team 17. So there you go, good stuff. It's like $24.99 if I recall. Yep, $24.99 on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, Steam, as well as even Linux and Macintosh. So they all went out there. So get it. Awesome game, Blasphemous. One of the best games to come out last year.